Thank you all for coming. We have Osho Zenju Earthlyn Manuel with us. And I think what I'd like to do is just maybe sit for about 5 minutes and let anybody who might be coming in, we've got over 100 people, just come in the next couple of minutes. So let's just sit a moment. So I want to welcome Osho Zenju Earthlyn Manuel. As many of you know, she's a poet, she's an author, very prolific. We're fortunate enough to be one of the first groups to talk to her about her latest publication, which is Opening to Darkness, 8 Gateways of Being with the Absence of Light in Unsettling Times. We'll also talk to her about sanctuary, a meditation on home, homelessness, and belonging, but also I think very, very core and key to her teachings is the book Shamanic Bones of Zen, revealing the ancestral spirit and mystical heart of a sacred tradition. First, Osho, I'd like to welcome you to the Pacific Zen series. We're just so happy and pleased to have you. Thank you for agreeing to come on. And I also would like to recognize that last November you lost your lifetime or longtime partner Shamwala Schultz, and it was very touching. I watched the ceremony on Facebook, as many of us did, and we wish you and your family and her family all the best.
Thank you.
So let's start with a reading, perhaps. Shamanic Bones of Zen, page 31.
Okay. All right. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm here at the support of my ancestors, and that includes my teacher, my partner, and all those who are holding me up at this time. I just want to just put that in the space. That's the only way I'm able to be here, and thank you for your support, John. So I'm going to read from Shamanic Bones of Zen, and if you have the book, I would invite you not to read along, to just put the book down and just listen and read it later, and even out loud, read it later out loud, so that you can see how it feels to you. But right now, let's experience these words in the moment, as I am doing. Even though I wrote it, it's always something new. And I'm always like, what? Trying to read it too. Okay. So here we go. Ceremonies of all kinds have been a profound part of my life. In my experience, the rituals are fueled through their interconnection with everyone and everything during ceremony. Ceremony, in the context of this writing, means a gathering of rituals or forms and into a shared activity, a dynamic activity that collectively embodies wisdom teachings. It is a communal sharing of oneself as part of the prayer, so to speak, as a devotee to awakening along with others. In Zen ceremony, a world outside of our usual world is created to enhance devotion and provide an immersive experience of silent action that is transformative and potentially beneficial to collective action in the world. It was during these ceremonies in the early years of my Zen practice that I experienced altered states of consciousness amid intense collective energy. I felt to be no self in a sense, in its truest sense, which is to be interconnected to everything and everyone, whether I wanted to or not. A bell, a whisk, the smell of incense, the drum, the hand that passes the offerings. These things cannot be done with the limitations of the mind. To think of yourself doing it alone and how perfect or imperfect you are overshadows the act of being. In being, the role of the rituals and the ceremony can bring you closer to the source by which your life came into being. There is no container in the hard, limited sense. There is only water by which you can float or drown, live or die. Either way can be experienced as healing and transformative.
Ritual in your life. We were talking about that earlier, and honestly, I don't have a lot of Zen ritual. You know, I meditate a lot. I work on koans with students. We do some ritual, but ritual to you is sacred. And how did you get into ritual as being sacred?
Well, as some folks know, I have and had experience before coming to Zen, experience in indigenous practices. And this book is to bring us back to the indigenous root of Zen, of Buddhism, of meditation. This practice is of the earth. It is an earth practice, and it is a practice of indigenous ceremony in Zen, whether we do them or not. It is that. And so I could feel that myself from having had experiences in other paths and other ceremonies and rituals. So when I came into Zen and began to do some of the rituals and some of the forms, it was easy. I just slipped right into it. My body knew it. Whether anybody around me knew it, didn't matter. Or even whether the people who were leading it, whether they knew it, didn't matter. I just knew, I could feel it, and I knew it. And did I walk around telling people about it? No, not until now. I felt like, all of my books happened at least 17 to 20 plus more years after practicing Zen, but I already had also 15 years before Zen. So I didn't just start practicing 2, 3, 4, 5 years and start writing books about it. So I just want folks to know that my books are grounded in my experience, in my walk, in my intention, in my devotion, and my commitment. So you say you haven't been doing any rituals, but you have, John, because meditation is the core ritual of Zen practice. There's nothing really else. Everything else is around it. So now why would I call Zazen or meditation a ritual? So it's very much like what most shamans do, is to sit in nature. We don't necessarily sit in nature, but we can conjure up nature as we're sitting on the earth. So someone asked me once, can you tell me, what I could do, a shamanic ritual that I could do in my practice? And I said, well, yeah, I can. And he's waiting. And I said, just go sit. because it's a very simple, shamanic practices are very simple. So as you sit, you find out what the stillness and silence is going to bring you. What kind of wisdom are you going to bring into this world through your life? This is exactly what the Buddha did. You know, it just came through him. And he was also taught by many people how to do these things. He didn't just, you know, wake up one day, have breakfast, and said, "I'm gone. See you later." You know, he was a prince, and a whole lot of the teachers came to their house, right? The teachers in the area where he lived in the Shakya tribe.
Yeah.
They were very much part of doing it from the earth. So sitting, chanting, offerings, all of that is part of a very old earth practice. And so I'm not inviting people to go out and find yourself a shamanic experience. I'm inviting you into the experience you are already in as one, as a shamanic experience. If you're in, you know, practicing a Buddhist tradition or meditation in some way, and there's so many other ways of entering a state of consciousness that in which meditation and Zazen brings. There are other ways, like drumming.
Right. Can I read you something about how you talk about Zazen as ritual? You say it's a prolonged ritual of seeing and listening, and you talk about sesshin, the retreats like that, which I really appreciated. It's a shamanic process and a way of life, and you say, but how can we go through the portal of Zazen and not ever hear the cries of the earth? Do we not dream as Buddha did? Do not the spirits of nature affect our lives? These exploratory questions deepen my curiosity about seeing Zen meditation as a shamanic journey. It's beautiful. That's the Kanon is the one who hears the cries of the world, right? Kanon Bodhisattva, yeah.
Kanon, Kanzeon, Kanyin, Avalokiteshvara, all kinds of names. Kwan
Mm-hmm. You teach ritual a lot, and you're about to ordain 4 of your students to give them the vows of the priesthood in the Soto school, just as Blanche Hartman did you some years ago. And you're also concerned about maintaining ritual and the idea that maybe we're not doing, maybe we're not throwing ourselves into ritual in the way we should, and also that maybe not all of the shamanic ritual was transmitted from Japan, from China, from India to us today, that maybe there's still some uncovered ritual there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, and I talk about that in the book too, and I actually name a ritual that is part of Koitsu, which is the son of Shinru, you know, sorry, Suzuki Roshi's son, Shinru Suzuki Roshi's son, Koitsu. I talk about an experience in which he was part of a ceremony and stopped the ceremony because he had something he wanted to put on the altar. And everybody was kind of like, what? You know, we're kind of already, you know how Zen is, you're not doing it right. And oh no, he's messing up the, you know, we got only so much time. And then it's time to eat. And so he was kind of not, it wasn't working quite right for him to do that. But he affirmed for me what I always felt in my heart, that a lot of what we have in the Western world is just, I always put up my baby finger, like just a little part, the baby fingernail part. That's what we have of the practice. And a lot of it is tied culturally to different Asian countries, not just Japan. I just want to make sure you know that, not just speaking of Japan, but other Asian countries where you can see, I think, the depth of where Buddhism came from and how they were already, before Buddhism arrived, very indigenous practices already were in play, and then so some of these villages also took on Buddhism, sometimes forced to take on Buddhism, and they meshed their practice together with Buddhism. So some of that indigenous way and shamanic way is still a part of Buddhism, and it felt very similar to me as to what Africans did when they came to, well, they didn't come on their own, we know. The Africans we're talking about that were displaced from their country and came here, and they, because I'm only talking about the United States region, slavery was different everywhere, but I'm talking about slavery, came here and merged their practices into Christianity. And you can still see some very old, I guess, style traditions of Christianity, or African churches, Black churches here. Some of the ways the tambourine is played, the people dance, the way the drum is played, all kinds of things are still happening. And I kind of feel like it happened because of that ritual called baptism. And so I think I feel Africans were used to that way of cleansing and being dumped into the water and using the water as a way of cleansing and bringing forth themselves, healing themselves, affirming their lives. And so when they saw baptism in water, and I feel this is only Zenju's, response to things, is the way they felt, when they saw that water was, okay, we can do this. We can find our way into this imposed upon religion. So and
you told us a story of your own baptism when you were about 12, right? They dipped you in and took you out. And the first time you didn't want to do it. You took your sister's hand and you did a U-turn, right? You went back.
Yeah, it was too many people watching. I know a lot of people, I keep saying I am a very shy person, but it doesn't sound like it or look like it in this moment, but I am. I'm really working hard to be here all the time. When I do talks, I have to bring out this other, person, to, speak. And so I feel that, I did do the ritual baptism with my church, Black church that I was raised in. And it was very frightening. And I remember dragging my poor younger sister along. I always dragged her into things, poor child, into things that I was doing because I didn't want to do it alone, but I made her think she was the one that was afraid and I wasn't. And I was trying to bring her into this. It was just really a big time manipulation. And so anyway, I manipulated her into getting baptized. One day I'm going to sit down and talk to her. It's like, what happened to you and what did it feel like? Because she had a fit in the water. She really did. Water was really hard for her. And so it was hard. But I feel it's okay for us not to worry about what's transmitted and what isn't, but to embrace what has been gifted to us and go deep into that. So it's not a negative point of view that I'm trying to bring. I'm actually just, if you have that feeling sometimes of like, and now what, after you have already, been practicing, say, for 40 years, which some of you have. So I think this is really important to every time you enter the door, every time you enter the temple, every time you sit down, that you're entering a new ceremony in a new moment, and to feel into the silence and the stillness. I loved my first sesshin. It was crazy because I had never been to a one day, but I loved it in the way the temple changed. because everybody, it was like a practice period for 2 months, seemed like everybody's running around, and then all of a sudden it was sasheen, and I could feel everybody go in. And even when I went to the Zendo, I was like, I've never felt this energy. And I've been here already, 40, 60 days. And I hadn't felt such an energy. And most of the people were seasoned and advanced, and I wasn't. So, but they sat in that energy. Didn't matter who it was. It really didn't. It was just the energy that was felt, the interconnection, the community, the collaboration, and the power of that, of being, just still and silent together, and what that is bringing, not what I'm bringing, but what are we bringing, and what a response to the troubles of the world. What a
Right,
response.
right. Now you talk about uh, when Blanche ordained you, um, and you brought along a sister. Was that your youngest sister again that you
My
brought along? Your
oldest,
oldest sister to represent your family. Yeah,
yeah, she
that was a
came.
big deal for you,
Yeah,
to become ordained. And
yeah,
can you tell us about the ceremony a little bit?
yeah. I really, I think all the gateways I've been in, I didn't choose, because I never really had interest in Buddhism or Buddha or anything like that, or even the places I've been. But when the gateway has swung open, I enter it, and then I go, oh no, what have I done? So it's usually mostly like that. I kind of like dive into this like deep end, and then I'm going, oh my God. So there was like kind of like that was Zen. And then all of a sudden I found myself moving toward this gateway of priesthood. It didn't feel like what priesthood may have been or looked like for the other priests in the center. I really felt it was a culmination of all the years I had walked the teachings and how they had become part of my life. And it was honoring that and honoring the ancestors of the past. And so that is what it felt like. And I just really enjoyed everything from the hair cutting. And I was a little bit nervous about when my sister, was going to see me bald. I mean, you're bald. It's like shiny bald. Not this. This is not bald. This is shaved. So it was like shiny bald. And I thought, oh my God, I wonder what she's going to think. And all of my communities were there. And that was, I had so many communities. So we filled the Buddha Hall was packed. My drummers, people from my Sundance community and people from other Buddhist traditions. It was nowhere to be. We had taken up the entire building, and I was being ordained with others, but they were mostly temple priests, and I was in the world, so I brought the world in the door when I got ordained. And so it was the most powerful movement to walk in my kimono, because you walk and you're supposed to be like you're naked, so you're wearing your kimono though, and you're walking in, and it's just quiet. I love ritual because everything is being said in the silence, and there's not going to be a mistake. Even if you make a mistake, it's no mistake, in the ceremony. So it was a powerful, I think, commitment and devotion to the teachings, for myself, and acknowledging those teachings becoming part of my life. It was filmed, and it's a big mess, hodgepodge of mess somewhere in my house. I don't know. Maybe one day somebody will find it and do something with it when I'm not around. And it was just beautiful. That's all I can say. It's you have to be in it, And my sister, when I did show her my shiny head, she just said, "Oh wow, that looks good." And I was like, you know, she said, "Oh, that's how I would look if I cut all my hair off." I thought about doing that. I was like, "Wow, where is this going?" And I was just shocked, and she felt that. And we do look alike. All three of us, we look like triplets. So it's three of us, and so we do all look alike in some way. And so I said, "Yeah, you would look beautiful if you cut off all your hair." But she would never do that.
And so a couple years after that, or sometime after that, studying with Blanche Hartman, she made you a successor. she made you a teacher in
Yeah.
Osho.
So,
And
yeah,
mhm,
successor takes 20 years
yeah, yeah, yeah.
before you
And
can call yourself a teacher. And
can
Zen.
I can I read you what you wrote about that a little bit?
Okay. All right.
Okay. So Dharma transmission is a private process between teacher and student, and I found it to be the most shamanic of all Zen rituals and ceremonies. I included in my Dharma transmission various altars to Black women writers who had transformed my life, as well as spirits of voodoo that were similar in my eyes to the ones in Zen. I also created an altar with the shawls I was gifted during the 6 years as head drummer and singer of Native American Sundance ceremony. And that was my way of becoming a Dharma heir as my whole self. I love that. That was how I became a Dharma heir as my whole self. How do we communities recognize as Zen practice family of mixed race and heritage? I ask you that. How do we, as communities, recognize Zen practice, family of mixed race and heritage?
I think that recognition is within ourselves and walking the way I did, because they said, go forth and make your altar. So when the teachers came and they saw all the altars I had made, and I had spent a week on the altars, with all the books of all the Black authors, all these shawls on another, and all they were like, oh my God, take a picture. We got to show everybody. They got to do this. And every part of my life, I've always walked with all of me. I didn't come in and say I didn't cut anything off. I walked in with myself as myself, good or bad or whatever. It didn't matter. And I think without a consciousness and focus on my own embodiment, I would not have had a location or a seat in which to have inquiry in a practice that required you to discover life. How are you going to discover life without a body not being embodied? Buddha was totally embodied, and when he was about to die, he was like, "Oh, like wait a minute, I'm not, I need my body to be enlightened," and he was about to die, and he said, "I need my whole body." And I think that that's very important, that we bring all of who we are, even especially if we have experienced any kind of imposed hatred because of it. How can you walk in the world and be fully, fully as you are, and without disdain, and without any feeling that you have to be somebody else. I had some people, one Zen teacher talked to me and she said, well, I love the way you do Dharma talks. She said, you're so yourself. And I was wondering who she was when she did her Dharma talks. And I did. I asked her, who have you been? Who have you been trying to be? And there are some wonderful teachers. Yeah, there's some ways how they talk. It's just incredible, but that's them, and I'm not them. And, like I said, I'm very shy. So sometimes I don't even feel like I'm communicating well, because I'm just trying to do my best in sharing the experience of the practice. I am not a kind of teacher to influence anybody else on how to live and what practice to take on. I do not believe in any of that in any way. I never have done that and will never do that. I think people must find their way on their own. If they want to walk with me, you can walk with me. And when you're done, you can say goodbye and bow. I love that, So I don't feel like it's. I even invite people who sit with me. They don't really have to call me their teacher. That's not important to me. What's important is that we're walking together.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think you're a shining light of the Dharma, if I may say so. So you got a lot of attention after you got Dharma transmission. And there was a time there when you wondered if it was all worth it. And you actually thought of possibly disrobing just take this job and, shove it. And you later found out that Blanche Hartman almost did the same thing, right? And you said that it was because of an onslaught, or you write about an onslaught of attention as a teacher of color, and you just wanted to be a person of no rank. You just wanted to be yourself. And as they say in Zen, and go on about business, leaving behind the projects of a Zen teacher. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I felt like what I did was important. I wasn't throwing that away. And if you ever see me, ever, you hear that I don't no longer wear robes. I no longer consider myself a Dharma transmitted teacher. What's inside my heart will never, never, ever disappear. My Christianity is right there. My love for the mystical Jesus Christ is right there. My love for the Africans that I got to do ceremony with is there. Because every step, my Nichiren's still there. Nichiren Buddhism, every step, everything that I have has come into my life. Every gateway is what you see. It's part of me. It's what you are hearing and feeling, and I am hearing it and feeling it too. So there's no way I can cut it. It'd be like cutting my hand off. So I wanted to disrobe, because the idea of teacher and student bothered me, actually. The way it felt to be played out. And I didn't want to be part of a situation that would create more suffering and more oppression, within someone's life. And so I eventually figured out a way to be like Blanche, which was to walk and say nothing sometimes. She just never said anything until you did something. You come running to her. She didn't say anything until trouble came. And when trouble came, she talked to you and just sent you on your way. But mostly she would just walk even in the temple, as if she was walking in the forest. And she loved to sit. And so I always know whoever was in the Zendo would be definitely Zenke Blanche Hartman and Zenju Earthlyn Manuel. We're going to be in that Zendo. And that is my practice. That is, I show up for that seeing, that ritual of seeing and sitting. I show up for it because it's so powerful. And it's so transforming without words and without an attention to any kind of result. So I did want to disrobe. I was like, okay. And I told Blanche even before I got Dharma transmit, I was hoping it wasn't going to happen because she was getting very ill and time was moving on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get away with it. I'm just going to be a priest, you can still do talks, if you're Shuso. And, she said, there's two things I want in my life. There's two things I want before I die. And I was sitting with her and Kiku, Christina Lynn, her, and we were sitting in the dining room. And I was holding her hand, and she said, yeah, there's two things. I want to see Lou, and Lou Hartman was her husband of 45 years or more, and they were monks together. Just an amazing story. Someone should write that story. Amazing story, those two. And I was very close to both of them. And so, and I said, oh, okay. So I didn't know what two was. And she said, and the other one is I want to see this one become a full teacher. And I was like, like, oh no. And so then she kept getting sicker and sicker. And then finally at her bedside, we did the first ceremony, the Minju, which made me her heir. And they had dressed her up and put her in a chair in her room. And we changed the room into something. Now, mind you, this is some kind of rehabilitation. And I'm in the hallway getting dressed, and they're wondering, like, why are they putting all those Japanese clothes on this Black woman, or what's going on? And so, I was getting dressed, and the nurses were like, oh my God, what's going on in that room? And so So then finally I went in, and it was just it's a very short ceremony. I'm not going to tell you any details. I was in, and I knew it was my last time giving her honor and thanks and gratitude. You know, I knew it. And so then I did my bows, and then I got up, and that's what made me her heir. She was insistent on that. And so then Shosan, Victoria Austin finished the Dharma transmission. And there were things in there I definitely won't be telling you, but I've seen people show some of that. I actually saw a piece of that on Facebook, actually. It's like, oh my God, there it is. I don't think people understood what was going on, but it was there. And I was like, uh-oh, it's on Facebook, but people didn't understand it, so I wasn't too shocked. But it's creeping out into the public, this private, very shamanic practice. And there was part of it that was so shamanic, it actually upset me because I didn't know it was going to happen. And they thought I was afraid, but I wasn't afraid. I just felt like it was a part of the ceremony I would have wanted to do with Zenke Blanche Hartman. Like, even if you just took me over there, we did it and then came back, because it was so powerful. And it happened anyway. And then I went and tried to, because I'm this is my Wudon self, went to go and tried to see if I could change that part of that ritual for myself, so that that connection was with Zenke Blanche Hartman in the way that I wanted it to be. I was grateful to Shosan Victoria Austin for carrying me the rest of the way, and
Nice,
for
nice.
making sure, Blanche had a Koromo, beautiful Koromo made for me. It was beautiful. I still have it. I still wear it. Um, I got a new kimono, which you get, and a jaban. It was just all beautiful. The gifts were like incredible. I had to, you almost need a truck to pull up and get all your stuff. All of a sudden, you have more stuff than you had when you went in. I said, interesting. All kinds of accoutrements that you need, to do the work. And so I didn't know what the work was. So I just said, I think I'll disrobe, because I think this is not going to work. And I was serious. And so then I changed my mind and decided to not disrobe outwardly.
You had an experience of giving students jukai, or lay
Right.
ordination, or we call it refuge,
And
where you give them 16 vows. And that really changed your heart about what it
yeah,
meant to be a priest in Osho, right?
right. Yeah. An Osho's teacher. And
Mm,
so, yeah, that's what it means. And so, like, when you die, it's die Osho,
mm,
right? Ekai Zenju Die Osho when I did, but now it's Osho. It's a name that got taken away because of the person who took on the name Osho was in the world, and some people might know this person, and his doings were suspect. So that's as far as I'm going to go on that. But anyway, I like I said, I just wrote from the inside, and that was to let go of what all I thought that was causing me to disrobe. That was all in my head, because I hadn't done anything yet, so it was all in my head. And then so the first thing, I didn't think really any of my students would want to do Jukai, and they did. I was like, oh no, it was really like, oh my God, oh no. And it was like, I don't know how many of us, three, and then I did three. Yeah, so six late, three at first, and then three later. And I was very excited that they wanted to do this, and so we did this whole sewing thing together at my house. I made a sewing room in my garage room at my house, and one of the sewing teachers came every week, and the diligence and the beautiful stitches they were making on their rakasus was incredible, because and I kept showing them my first rakasu, and it like, oh my God, who helped you? You didn't get any help, did you? The stitches are all over the place. So anyway, when I did the first ceremony, the very first three, I was like, I couldn't stop crying. I mean, Shosan had to hand me handkerchief. it was so powerful to see the beauty and the joy in their faces and the freedom. And I think of their Dharma names, I always say, as a freedom from oppression. These are all Black women, and it's a freedom from oppression. These names that don't carry all of that. And so they had freedom names and a freedom ceremony and a liberation. And I was at the gateway of letting them in. And I said, if that's all I ever do, that I will keep the robe. That is what that robe is for. It's for this and nothing else. Not the Dharma talks, not leading the sessions, not writing books. It is for that, to be at the gateway for those who want to be liberated and to stand there without judgment, but with kind words and guidance, and to help them find a way in this world. And so it was so touching and heart blowing. Of course, I still am wearing my brown robes. I'm still Dharma transmitted. I didn't let go. There are times when I do want to let go, like not do it. And it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know if it ever will, but I always leave that door open, the possibility, and to recommit all the time, to re-ask myself, what are you doing? What are you doing and why are you doing it? And how is it affecting other people? How are you in relationship with others? How are you in relationship with yourself? To keep checking in and checking in and checking in. I'm an imperfect person, and I know this, and that's okay. It's better to know it and share that than to pretend something other.
Yeah, I think in your writings you called yourself a messy life, therefore a messy teaching. This is perfect. In Sanctuary, a meditation on home, homelessness, and belonging, beautiful book, a narrative of your life growing up in Inglewood, and your parents from rural Louisiana, and then before that, I don't know, you had mentioned Haiti. I don't know, maybe that's where your name, your family name, originally came from. In that book, you talk about after one receives the monastic vows, homelessness and sanctuary become one and the same. Homelessness and sanctuary become one and the same. What did you mean by that?
It was more of a feeling. It was hard to articulate that, because the homelessness in Zen is not the homelessness of our world. The people who are unhoused is the word we use now, instead of homelessness for unhoused individuals. And so, but in Zen, you leave the world. So in that sense, you're homeless. But in that homelessness, you find sanctuary, which is to feel as though you belong in this life, And I think it's a constant journey. It's not something like, oh, now I belong. You could feel that way one minute and the next minute it's not there. It's not something you can grab onto. Everything's a journey, right? I always tell people, I say, our life, as soon as we're born, we're on a walkabout and then we die. I said, we're just kind of walkabout, and things are coming at us, and how we deal with it and how we engage it is different between each other's lives. But, we grow to understand, this changing life, constant disruption, and how to live through it. It happens as soon as we're born, and it continues to happen, until we die, the biggest disruption. So, illness and death. And so my last name, I wanted to go back a little bit. My last name is Manuel. And, since I've been here in New Mexico, everywhere I go, they changed the name around for me. And I said, I do know which one's my last name and which one's my first name. It's Earthlyn, because that's what I write for them, because it matches my credit card. Zenju's not on my credit card. So Earthlyn are my, Medicare card. And they always change it around, and I have to go to every place and stop them from changing it around, because then my records are all messed up. They can't find my records, so they can't find my appointments. And so I said, Manuel is not a name that's owned by the Spanish. It's not, and it's not only, a name for Mexicans. When it's in the last place as a surname, it's Portuguese. I'm always having to educate in that way. And I'm not Portuguese, but my people were taken from the Congo by the Portuguese and taken to the Caribbean. And therefore, I have this name. And Manuel is a very core name of Haiti. And that's how I traced myself back. And so Haiti, and then a lot of people came to Louisiana. Haiti and Louisiana had a very close contact and relationship, which is a whole nother story. So I think it's interesting to have all of these names and then be given more names in a jukai, which is where you get your first name, or when you're getting ordained. And the more names I get, it's very interesting. I have a lot of names. I think I have about 9 names or so, but I do. And so I think when you get these names, it's a way of marking a place in your life that you've never been before. And that's what the Dharma name is. It marks that, a place you've never been. And it's profound.
Should we chat about Opening to Darkness, your newest book?
Sure.
Yeah, just a lovely treatment of darkness, and darkness in our lives, darkness in our skin. Darkness, darkness as a necessary part of life. Really, we talk about the light inside the dark, which you do as well, where darkness actually shines with a kind of its own light. And in the beginning of the book, you say, since all paths, religious, spiritual, or without name, intersect in the place of darkness, darkness is the place where the mind is forced to detach itself from whatever it is grabbed onto in life. And in that nothingness, in that dark place, we awaken. It's just lovely. On page 27 is a paragraph or so that, if possible, I'd love to have you read.
All right, let's see. And so before, just so you all know, the primary, I think, teaching in it is that, and why I wrote the book is I see so many people longing for light. And if we could long for this darkness as well, and then to let go of what we think light is, and maybe even darkness. So this speaks to it, this piece that I'm going to read. It's the first, if you have the book already, read it later. Page 27, Honoring Darkness. What if for a moment we consider that the dark is the light, a different kind of light? It is not the bright light that we think we know and love, but a dark light that is dispersed through a porous, dark fabric. We can't look through this black fabric with our physical eyes. We can only sense it from within. Opening to darkness is an inner journey with opening to life, an entrance into the vastness of life. Opening without grasping for what can't be grasped. Darkness is the birthplace from which all things and all people emerge into being, and into which all will re-enter at some point in the future. We can't touch that. I just thought that this is so magic. There's just something we can't do anything about. That is the magic of our being. And it can't be touched. Emerging from the darkness and re-entering it, we can't touch that. What is arising from darkness sometimes feels like the worst of the worst. Can we discern if the monsters on our backs are growling because we have yet to give them attention? Who or what are we ignoring in the rise of hatred? What is it that we are still unaware of? What happened to the original teachings of darkness, which came from being in darkness aeons ago?
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. So dreams, these lucid dreams of darkness, really, at least partly, have been really critical to you at various points in your life. You had the dream of the mandala, the 8 gateway, the dark gateway mandala, and also you had the dream of the dark angel. Could you tell us about the dark angel, and then about how you developed, and the cards that you developed, and then also tell us a little bit about the dark 8
the eight
dark gateways? Yeah.
The 8 gateways. So I'll try to also show you the picture that's in this book. It's the Opening to Darkness. So I feel like Opening to Darkness is actually a continuation of the dream that I had, and many things, like it was a whole nether, well, it was end of another century. And I think I had the dream in 1996, after I returned from India. I had this dream, and in it appeared what I didn't know what it was, but later it became called the Oracle, the Black Angel card Oracle. And I had to grow to understand it. It's out of print, but I still use this deck to do divination, which it brought to my life. And divination means to go in. For me, it has a lot of meanings for different people, but for me, to go in and to access the ancestors and beings that live with us, unseen beings, and to find to use their wisdom in our lives. So I didn't know. I was surprised of how much this oracle worked. So when I got the dream, I didn't know what it was. It was in the middle of the night. Naming them black angels didn't make sense because I wasn't necessarily into angels. So it felt.
You had this big splitting headache the first.
Yeah, the night before, I had a serious headache. It was intense. I just knew I was going to die, and this is like a constant threat in my life. I'm always on the edge of death, and here I am. But anyway.
But didn't you like say? Didn't you make a promise?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I made a pact. I made a pact with God to take the headache away. Now I'm Buddhist, right? So I'm making a pact with God to take the headache away, and I promised to do my work, to serve in the way that I was supposed to serve. Somehow I knew I was supposed to serve, and I was going through all of this like I knew I hadn't served. I hadn't done what I was supposed to do to, my medicine. I'm just going on and on. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I knew to say that. And that night I woke up with this oracle. Since all of these years, I realized the oracle is not necessarily the cards. The oracle is me. But who am I to say I'm an oracle? But we all are. And so in that way, it's how do we access our own messages and wisdom? And that's what it was helping me to do. A lot of times I would read people and I didn't know I was reading them, and I get in trouble. So I think they gave me those cards to help me stop getting in trouble with people in my life, because I would see things. And so it was helpful. And it was helpful to get their permission for me to read and to say and these kinds of things. So this is one of the things that it has not been transmitted in Zen and to Zen priests, is that in the ancient days, priests were seers, and people came for a divination, for a reading, and that was almost some of their primary work. So even when you go for practice discussion, that was to encounter the priest in the place of Zazen, in the place of intuition, in the place of stillness and steadiness, in order to get the wisdom from the priest, between you and the priest. And so that went away, or didn't come. And there is a whole tradition, the Shinto, uh, Shinto and Shingon are two intuitive, I would say, practices in Japan, and that didn't make it over here all the way. There are, I think, a Shinto, maybe one Shingon, but it's very westernized. And so that's something so when I found that out, I realized later, because when I became a priest and I had this oracle, I was like, well, these two aren't, and they were bringing something together, something very ancient, and which I didn't know at the time. So I still have this oracle, and it's still within me. I do use it to help people when there's some confusion in their life, but I do it without the cards anyway. So actually doing it right now.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And the other really lucid dream was sort of the genesis for the mandala
Oh yeah.
that created this latest book, and
Yeah.
that was a while ago too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had all of my lucid dreams. So a lot of people have dream books, and I don't. I haven't written down anything, and I know all of my lucid dreams as far back as to when I might maybe 11, 12. I know all of them, and so that's a lot of decades of dreams. But I remember them, and the most, because they changed my life. That's why I know them. And so this is I was in one dream. One dream, I was in this place, and they were saying, create your mandala of your teachings, create the mandala of your teachings. And I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. A mandala. What mandala? And so many, many years until this book.
You were sitting around on a floor, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yep. It was like 10 people who were summoned to create this mandala. That's not what I created. I didn't create anything. I was one of the few who didn't have anything. Nothing appeared in a dream for me. But later coming through, I think with expanding the teachings of Black and Angel, dark and light, which is what the teachings were about. And I really couldn't get that out to people, and it was being truncated, and the oracles becoming games, and and black and white was something of the world as opposed to something of spirit that I was feeling. And so I'm so glad I haven't left this world before I get to articulate the true teachings, that I'm still here and I'm able to do that. And so the mandala in the book is a great way, and the gateways in the book are attached to the mandalas. There's 2 circles. I was going to do 10 Saturdays of this, going through these gateways, and I have to postpone it, and because of my energy, because I not only lost my partner, but I also have had surgery, and so it's too much I had to redo my life. And then I was going to do it in person here in New Mexico to walk people through the 8 gateways. These things will still happen eventually. I trust that. And in these gateways, so I don't write curriculum. This is what you should do. This is how you should do it. And then you learn it, and then you go out and try to do it. No, I don't believe in it. So our formula. So the gateways are really a place for you to enhance your intuition, to the same intuition that I'm talking about that's within me, to answer and to heighten it, especially around darkness, because if you can heighten it around that, you'll be heightening around your life. You'll be able to bring more wisdom to your engagement in life rather than more knowledge. So we always want to know how we're going to do it, and don't worry, I'm still learning too. Because someone told me, when are you going to listen to your, spirit guides? And because I think I hear it and I see it, and then I go off and do my own thing. And what the person said, yeah, what you do is called a persistent failed strategy. And so, and
Was
so
that your little sister said that?
no, no. I have a lot of seers around me and healers. They just come to my life. I am really part of an intergalactic planet. People come into my life. I don't go seeking it. It just happens. So
One thing that you've attached to the mandalas are these very powerful women, and we don't have time to talk about them, but can you just mention a couple of them, and um,
yeah.
like a Mahakali and from various cultures, right?
I try to use here is my Mahakali. Let's see.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I did my renditions of them. So and I talk about that too. And I think what I wanted to do is bring, a lot of times they talk about mothers and dark mothers in the some Buddhist traditions, not Zen. And so most times they're, not of color. So I thought to bring in some of the African deities, but not in a way of this is who they are, this is how they are, and every Vodun practitioner uses these, and this is not true. And I say that they all have their own pantheon that they work in deities that they serve. And so I am not a Vodun practitioner, and I definitely put that claim that disclaimer in the book. This is Mama Dantor, who in maybe our Christian world would think of as the Mother Mary and or the Madonna, the Black Madonna. So we know the Black Madonna, but I thought, oh, everybody knows the Black Madonna, and the Black Madonna is also Mama Dantur in the Vodun pantheon. So I thought to bring a different edge into that. So I'm not teaching these deities. All I'm doing is presenting them as a very light and loose container in which to look at some of the elements as dark mothers to see, because all of them have this destructive side and then this side that is not. And so I call it carrying sword and flowers. And it felt so much like myself. I said, I'm such a dark mother because there will be monstrosity sword will come at you, and then there's flowers. So how to cut through like what's happening now when darkness comes. A lot of times we're cutting through some of the things that need to be destroyed, and a lot of people lives get caught up in that, so it's very hard for us. So it's a lot of corruption, destruction, the climate, everything is happening, and it's always been happening. This is not the first time they did have the ice age. So we're not the first ones to experience an uproaring earth, planet. So nobody did anything. We can blame it on, oh, these people did this and these people did that, but it really is the way of spirit. So I'm looking at darkness spiritually. Everything I look at sounds familiar, but I'm looking at it in a spiritual sense, So and I'm looking at it in a spiritual sense at the crossroads of suffering. So a lot of people come on and say, oh, I just love darkness, and say, yeah, me too. I'll sit in the dark in my living room until the sun goes down, and then it's all dark. And my partner used to come home and she said, oh my God, you're sitting in here. I was in the dark, and she said, why don't you turn on the lights? And, it's just something I enjoy, but that is not what I'm talking about. That's fine if you enjoy darkness and camping and night and all these kind of things. But I'm really wanting us to explore darkness and blackness at the crossroads. This book was written during the pandemic. The more we had the darkness of the pandemic, the more anti-blackness we had in the world. So there's connected. Our imposed ideas and sense of darkness is connected to how we deal with blackness, even if it's not a person. Our darkness as an experience. So somehow darkness and blackness got disconnected from its essential existence. So I'm looking at it essentially and spiritually. And it's quite the book. I mean, after I wrote it, I said, oh no, I'm going to have to talk about it. That's, it was very, it's kind of like my trustees, and it's like very deep to talk about. And that's why I just wanted to do the 8 gateways. If we walk through those gateways together, um, you'll have your own understanding, not Zenju Earthlyn Manuel's understanding of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a step-by-step guide, isn't it? And people can get it and go through the book and do the meditations and the like. And then people at zenju.org, people can keep an eye to see if you're going to do something in person here at any one point in time. So
I want to make a point that there are 8 gateways, and I'm doing the meditations on the audio, from audible.com. I'm reading it, so it might be beneficial to get. I never even talk about getting the audio part of a book, because I just, sometimes I wish I just give these things to folks for free. But the audio will help you do the gateway, so you just have to listen to me read it to you as you go through it. I suggest in the book, though, if you don't want to do that, is have someone do it with you and they read it for you, and then you read it for them. So because it's kind of impossible to read it and do it at the same time.
Yeah. Let me just say, if people have questions, just send a chat and we'll try to read them, pull them up and read them. Osho, you talk about a real tragic suicide by a friend of yours when you were 14. And this was a girl that you were good friends with, and she had said that her mother didn't like her, and you said, well, come live with us. And 2 days later, she was dead. Mm-hmm. And you've worked with children. I have a friend who you worked with his son personally. Can you talk to us about your work with children?
Yeah, I love working with children. My mother had a school, so I was with children, at least, 30, 40 kids every day of my life. She had a preschool. And then I worked in the schools for a while. And then I helped start a alternative school for African-American children. And we started it as just a preschool and kindergarten. It's now high school. And I did meet one of the students in Berkeley one time. He said he had gone to the school. And I was like, you with the Marcus Garvey? And we just hugged. And yeah, and he was at UC Berkeley. And I felt like that it was just amazing. This is like, I don't know how many years later, like 50 years later, to meet this young man. And so I'm always interested in children. To me, they're the purest of who we are. And even with all of that they carry, it's they're so precious. And I did have my own alternative school too for a short time in Los Angeles. It was a Saturday school. And I had got the idea from my Jewish friends who would go to school on Saturdays. We'd be done on Friday and they'd go to school on Saturday. And I said, oh no, we need one too. That's how they're ahead. We need a Saturday school. So I opened up a Saturday school. Of course, not probably like the tradition that my Jewish friends were going through. But anyway, children come out of the darkness of babies. And they come out of the darkness, and even with all that they may be carrying, come out with the capacity to teach us how to love. And they're here for that when they come. And even babies, I feel I've been around a lot of babies who were just born, a lot of them, because they used to come to our house and we take care of them. And I've seen the evolution of babies too. There's a new kind of baby on the planet, I want to tell you. And so I feel that we need to work with our youth more closely and providing them more detailed rituals and ceremonies as they move through life, not like a lot more, not just birthdays and not just graduation, because they may not graduate, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve to have a ceremony or some kind of ritual that acknowledges their lives and what they have done in their life. Teenagers, especially, I notice how the suicide rate have been going up. And I felt that teenagers they're like living in the dark. They're in what I called an initiation of darkness. I know I went through it and I remember it very well. I went silent as a teenager. I didn't talk and at all. And so people thought of me as kind of strange, but I was in my initiative world of darkness, probably with the beginning of the book started back then. And I was a poet, so they could read my poetry. I said, here, read my poetry. And um, I feel like if we could hone that time and tell young people, especially teenagers, that they're being taught and initiated into life and how to handle the things that will come up in their life, because there's a lot of disruption at that time, I think, for teenagers. And we have rites of passages for them. A lot of communities have those. And trying to pass them into manhood, womanhood, or adulthood, or whatever word you want to use. But most important is letting them know that they feel so awful all the time because they're in an initiatory place, and that they are learning, how to live life when they get a few years older. And if they could help them gain the capacity to really see themselves, to see their spirit, not how great they are and then affirm them all the time. That's wonderful, but more, deeper, and having a way of uh, turning, that constriction, actually expanding it. I won't say turning it, expanding that constriction that happens in that developmental stages. I mean, they're almost as dark as, from the dark place of where newborns come. You're like kind of back there as a teenager. And I think we don't notice that. We just see them growing up, their bodies are changing and those kinds of things, but they're more newborn than ever, and I think we don't recognize that, and we don't see them. And they need to be seen and loved. Yeah, that was a big part of my partner's work too. Sambuela Schultz, she worked with youth at risk.
Yeah, particularly the world that we're handing off to them, right?
Yeah.
It's a challenging world.
Yes.
Um, I love so much the story of your families in sanctuary, and here and there your story about your mom about the vision quest, and then also about your mom with I don't know if it was ayahuasca, but it was a plant medicine experience. Could you talk about those two uh, times that you saw your mother and talked to her? It makes me think about that because my mother's 100th birthday just passed, and all of her 6 kids got together for dinner, and I've dreamed about her, and I miss her. But I'd love to hear stories of your mom. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
think before I do that, I want to check in around Q&A from the audience. Did we get those
okay.
questions yet?
We got one
Okay.
where a deep bow and thank you
Mhm.
so much, Zenju and
Okay.
everyone. I'm so sorry I have to leave early. So
Yeah.
happy to have shared
Yeah. So
this time
no,
with
this
you.
is if we have any questions, I just want to make.
Yeah.
So that's a great. Those stories are in the book to discover my mother in. So plant medicine, I don't know, came into my life. It's like a lot of people say, I've never gotten invited to an ayahuasca ceremony. So when I got invited, I had no idea it was an ayahuasca ceremony. I never asked. The woman just said, do you want to look deeply into the wounds of your ancestors so that you can see what is, part of your life and how you can heal that and heal your ancestors. And so I said, oh yeah, that's right. That's something I can do. And so I went, and it's a long story there. I did end up, realizing I was in a medicine ceremony. Thank God it was only 2 people, me and this other woman. And so I went through that process, and I remember it feeling very familiar. From that point on, I kept getting invited all the time. So I'm always surprised people aren't invited. And so, and one of them I did see, the first one I did see my mother, and I saw her as a mambo in a ceremony. And it made sense because my mother was very much a person who practiced a lot of they call it superstition, because she was from Louisiana, and my father, he practiced a lot of things too. So he was like a treater or traiteur is what they call them, people who treat people and they're not doctors in Louisiana. And he was a traiteur, and he was always treating me because I had a lot of earaches. So I was with people and raised by people who use folk medicine. And so I grew up to know that folk medicine edged on the Budan. So I wasn't surprised to see my mother in the visions as that. I don't recommend plant medicine if if you have any kind of imbalances. I feel like the more I went to some of these sits, I remember at one sit, I was sitting on a near a wall, and in the whole room, this was a larger one, the whole room was going through the process with the plant medicine they had taken. And I was sitting there and I was like, wow, this wall right here is just like, we're just sitting here. And we weren't going into the depths of the plant in the way that other people were. We were, but differently. Later, I found out that whole row were Buddhists and have been meditating for like 25, 30 years. So we knew how to sit with the plant. And so it made a very different experience. I ended up becoming a singer in some of the ceremonies. And then the last ceremony I was in, I said, oh no, when I get home, because I used to have a vine on my altar. When I get home, I'm going to take that vine off my altar. It's called grandmother medicine. So I put her on the altar as grandmother. And I took grandmother off my altar, and I have not been invited to a ceremony since. So it's not something, it's not in place of my practice. It was an experience of sitting with um, the unseen and the mind and the seen and the mind, because if you're in the mind you'll lose it in those ceremonies. And so it was very interesting to see how much I was in the mind, or was I in the world of spirit, or how I engaged that. It was interesting to see. So my mother was a dark mother, like those monastery sword and flowers. And I'm definitely an image of her. And so I began to understand her more as I wrote Opening to Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
I really
nice.
to understand her as a spiritual being, and that I never could. We never were this mom and daughter, or a mom that made cookies like Donna Reed. That was an old show for y'all. The old show, like this is not a mother, and really she wasn't. We were in the world to be divine beings together, and she was to show me some things, and she would say things to me, but I didn't understand that. I want you to watch yourself when you do this. I want you to watch. And she was seeing my life, you know. She said, people are going to follow you. I want you to watch what you do. And I was like, what is she talking about? And so she would say things to me that she was trying to teach me. And my father would too. Both of them would try to teach me and try to heal me. My father taught me a lot about death. And so I had very powerful parents, and my father was 60 when I was born, so he already was wise, and my mother was 42, and she had another child at 45, but first child at 39. So they were older. We didn't have to go through any of their foolish 20-year-old foolishness or anything like that. They were already grown. We didn't have to grow up with them. So that was, I feel, what made me quite a different human being than some of my peers who have very, very young parents. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to finish with just a reading that you ended Shamanic Bones with, if I might. In the San Francisco area, there's a place called Goat Rock Beach, where the Russian River meets the Pacific Ocean. On their way to each other, it appears as though it's a river meeting the ocean, but it is simply water meeting water. We bring our fire, earth, and breath. We bring our human selves. I am grateful for the journey. We are only passing through to learn, to grow, to love, and then to return home. Yeah.
I like
I'm,
that That's a vortex. So if you ever, those in California, make your way down to um, that beach. Go ahead, beach,
yeah.
and then to the part where, and be careful. It's a cliff there. Okay, so you can't just get in the water and swim off. If you get in the first 10 feet, you could just drop because it's a cliff in the water. So they're always constantly going up and down the beach because they're waiting for somebody to fall off that cliff under the water. But I don't go in it. I know it's there. And then but there's that place where the Russian River meets that ocean, and it's powerful. I've done a lot of rituals there for myself,
Oh,
cleansing rituals.
that's nice. In fact, one person wrote that Goat Rock Beach is right behind them.
All right,
So,
all
for,
right.
for FYI, that's Goat Rock Beach behind me, Russian River on the right.
That's right.
um,
That's
Even though your oracle cards and book are out of print, any possibility of bringing them back? This has been a very interesting talk. Thank you for your sharing.
Yeah. I think they'll come back on their own. They came to me on their own, so they I imagine they'll come back on their own. There's a lot of people that contact me constantly. Someone just did that last week. So it's more than money. I have the money. That's not the problem. The problem is when I lived in California, I at least was by the port. You get this big old thing off these big, it's a lot of work off these big tanks, So it was with HarperCollins, Harper One, which is a gigantic publishing company. Then the rights came back to me after about 10 years, and then I published it myself, and it's a lot of work. I don't have staff, and after a while, the last time I saw my poor partner trying to carry the box with on the pallets and all, I said, this is over. We're not going to do this anymore. And it's you need a staff. You need to be by a port. You need to have a lawyer to help you with overseas, bringing things from overseas. It was coming from China, and because that's the only way I could get it printed cheaply. Otherwise, here it'd be $50 to buy here in this country. So it would need another publisher, and it's many decks and oracles and like traditional tarots have gone to other companies, but this one is not been accepted. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay. Couple of questions. Are you leading retreats sessions, and what form do they take?
Yeah, so this is my week. This is my year. I'm not doing anything new. Like I was saying, I postponed a lot of things. I have to heal. This it's going to take a long time. To even doing this is stepping way out on the edge. Um, the way I feel right now, even though I'm supported, I'm very grieved, deeply grieved, and I don't usually try to do work with folk when I'm grieved. I don't do healing work when I'm healing. So it's best for me to do the healing. And yes, eventually there will be something. I don't know what. I'm not going to do a whole lot still because I feel like my life's been really busy, and I would love to travel, and I need to live my life. And I like to do that. But check on the website for anything that might come up. And if something comes up, you better jump for it because, you know, I don't know, what, yeah. Do not buy the Black Angel cards on Amazon. I see somebody putting that up. Do not buy them.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have books, they don't have cards, they don't have anything. Do not buy them. I tried to put these are people who I don't know who they are. Don't buy them on there. My cards are out of print. Believe me. Do not buy what's on Amazon. in terms of the Black Angel cards.
Okay.
Now, you're only going to get the book and not the cards. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for the generous sharing. I just received Opening to Darkness, and so appreciate the honoring of darkness. It's been part of my life and who I am, and I'm so grateful. Where was that place called in California? Was that Goat Rock? Is that what we're talking about? It's at the where the Russian River meets the Pacific Ocean, which is in Sonoma County, near Guerneville. Thank you, Zenju. So lovely that you could take a peek out of your cave. Please do take good care of yourself.
Yeah, going back to my cave. Thank you. It's my cave.
Yeah, and then thank you, Zenju. I'm reading the paperback Opening to Darkness alongside the audiobook, So Worth the Wait. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, Zenju, thank you so much for your time and your warm presentation, and just so nice to spend time with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to all the folks I see and know out there, and thank you for those I may get to know one day. So hopefully we'll see each other someplace, somewhere, and see quite a few Sangha members and people who have sat with me for many, many years, like over 10 years, a lot of people out here. So yeah, good to see you all. Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Good night. Good night, all.
Be well.
Thank you for joining.
Okay. Take a rest.
All right, Zenju. Good, Osho. Good night.
All right. I'll see you later.
Thanks so much. Okay. I'll be in touch with you.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.